Welcome back, everybody. So here we are with issue 4, the bonus material. There's some interesting things in here. We'll go through it, and I'll let you know what I thought was interesting, and you can let me know if you found it also interesting. So we'll just touch on this real quick. So this last time in issue 3, we talked about the T-65, the X-wings, but it didn't talk about the armament and some of the other stuff. So we'll just kind of go through that real quick. So as far as armament goes, we have 4 tame and back KX-9 or IX-4 laser cannons. You get 2 Krupsk MG-7 proton torpedo launchers. Each is equipped with 3 torpedoes as standard. The Fabritech ANQ 3.6 tracking computer with the IN-344-B sightline holographic imaging. I'm guessing that's the thing that comes out and goes over your eye when you're trying to sight in on like the trench run in A New Hope. For shielding, it's got the Kimpat Defender deflector shield generator, the 50 SBD, silent but deadly. Made myself laugh. Countermeasures, aft chaff, and flare launcher. So there you go. That should finish up most of everything for the X-Wing. Well, this here will. These next couple pages. So the X-Wings, obviously, you know, the like all S foils and all that kind of stuff. But one of the things I found interesting here was in combat, however, the S foils were folded out to increase the spread of the laser cannons at their tips, giving the craft its distinctive X profile from the front or rear. The cannons on some earlier models, this is the really important part, could not be fired when the foils were in locked positions. So when they say, you know, lock your S foils in attack position, there was a reason why they said that because some of the earlier models you couldn't attack if they were closed, but they were made to save energy and allow for higher performance when they were closed down. So that's interesting. And of course, you know, R2 as the astromech helped do some of the maintenance stuff and fly the ship and all that kind of stuff. So this part here talks about Rogue Squadron. Now, um, in my opinion, maybe they'll bring it back, but as of right now, Disney kind of did us all a disservice with getting rid of the Rogue Squadron. So according to them, Rogue Squadron does not exist. But let's see what this according to all of the previous um, Legends stuff, what's now called Legends. So Luke started the Rogue Squadron. So let's just go through this. Wedge Antilles was one of the few X-wing pilots to survive the Battle of Yavin, after which he founded the Rogue Squadron with Luke Skywalker. Together, they built Rogue Squadron into a formidable fighting unit, and when Luke renewed his Jedi training after the Battle of Hoth, Antilles took command. At the Battle of Endor, the Rogues took the name Red Squadron in honor of the earlier heroes, and flying as Red Leader, Antilles struck the blow with Lando Calrissian to destroy the second Death Star. So yeah, I find it a huge disservice. Maybe they'll bring it back, but as of right now, no. Some of the behind the scenes as far as the models go, the models used to film the X-Wings in flight for the Battle of Yavin were quite small, although they were packed with wiring that lit up the engines and lasers. When it came to filming Return of the Jedi, the original script featured Luke's X-Wing flying much closer to the camera, so the model would need much more detail, as well as articulated model pilot. Fortunately, it turned out that 2 of the ILM model makers had been building a 1.2 meter version um, in their spare time. So the company commissioned them to complete it for the filming. The big model was duly filmed and looked very convincing on screen, but its scenes were cut from the movie. It's really unfortunate. I wish they wouldn't have cut those. So, and here's actually them working on the wings and all that kind of stuff. And now we get to learn about indoor. So I'm not going to go too much in about indoor, but we can give a lot of the normal stuff here. So it's in the outer rim territories where most everything seems to be. It's in the Model sector, and it's known as the indoor system. Its orbital position is 2. Um, it's 43,000 light years from the core, or 13,183 parsecs. Seems to be getting a little bit closer than some of the other ones. Its diameter is 4,900 kilometers, so just a shade over 1/3 of Earth. It's 85% gravity. That's pretty interesting. And it's got forests, mountains, deserts, savannas, lakes, rivers, and very small seas. It's only 80 or 8% surface water. So, Bright Village, that's where the Ewoks were. We won't go too much into that. Um, there's not a whole lot here. Um, and just some of the native beings that were there. Obviously, the Ewoks, the Bordoks, the Duloks, the Gorfs, and the Yuzum. And then there's some of these uh, other things here. One of them is known as the Rockers. So there you go. Um, go a little bit about the Imperial Shield Generator. So to protect the Death Star during the early stages of its construction, the Empire set up an outpost on Endor and installed an SLD-26 planetary shield generator capable of putting out a nearly impenetrable wall of energy. The Ewoks saw this as a crime against nature, but until the rebels arrived, they could see no way to fight back against the Imperial invaders. Some behind the scenes stuff here. We have the real world location for Endor is close to Lucasfilm's home in Northern California, as scenes among the giant trees were filmed in Redwood National Parks along the Pacific coast. First appearing in The Return of the Jedi, Endor was later developed as the location for 2 TV films about the Ewoks in 1984 and 85, and a cartoon series in 85 through 87. While the moon is referred to by name in the original movie, its inhabitants never are, only appearing as Ewok in script directions and in the on-screen credits at the end. They were developed after George Lucas abandoned his original idea to have the Wookiees helping the rebels to overthrow the Empire. The name Ewok switches the syllables of the name Wookiee, but it's also related to the Miwok, native people of Northern California. The man-made lake at Lucasfilm Skywalker Ranch was named Lake Ewok. So there's some interesting things about the hull, and I think this is kind of foreshadowing on what's going to be coming up in future issues as far as what we're going to be working on, because we're going to be talking about the hull. So we'll probably be putting on a lot of hull. So let's go through the behind the scenes here. So plating on the original filming miniature was made from plastruct polystyrene modeling sheet. Sections were cut into around a dozen different geometric shapes and notched with a tool that nibbled small rectangles out of the edges before the panels were pieced together over the curves of the main hull. A similar method has been used to create the full-size Falcon, with sheets of plywood used to simulate the panels of the armor plating. On the finished model below, the separate pieces of plastic sheet below were covered with hundreds of parts from model kits, breaking up the outlines. So here, this is going to be kind of a long bit to read here, but I find it very interesting, so I wanted to share this. And with a lot of this stuff, I don't know how much of this is still fits into Disney's canon, but I find it interesting regardless. So a series of owners continued adding on their special modifications, but it was not until the ship came into Han Solo's ownership that she took on her final external appearance. The hull was in remarkably good shape, and Solo was determined to keep it that way. He and Chewbacca welded and fused extra armor plates across the most vital sectors of the ship, giving the crew areas and engines a level of protection that approached that of purpose-built warships. While CEC had offered an upgrade for its hull plating, according to legend, the duralloy plate that Han used came from a derelict Imperial Neutron Star class bulk cruiser, the Liquidator, designed during the Clone Wars to serve as a second line patrol ship or armed freighter. The slow and inefficient Neutron Star class vessels were soon outdated and outgunned by later ships. The Liquidator was sent as part of an Imperial strike force deployed against the smugglers of Nar Shaddaa. During the rout that followed, she was put out of action by Mako Spence's Dragon Pearl and a Y-wing fighter escort. The damaged hulk of the Liquidator plummeted towards Nal Hutta, the homeworld of the Hutts. However, while the ship was destroyed, the hull's tough subframe, built by Rendili Star Drive, proved to be a useful source of scrap, including the salvaged sheets of plating that were acquired by Han Solo in his smuggling days. The military-grade armor was made of thick duralloy, shaped to fit the original vessel's hull. The panels had notched interlocking edges, while Solo selected the plates to fit the curvature of the Falcon's hull as close as he could. Inevitably, there were numerous gaps, and some of the sheets already bore the evidence of battle damage. Despite this, the combination of the armor and military-grade shielding made the Falcon all but impervious to any ordinary attack. So I found this part rather interesting. So now I can tell you that Nal Hutta and Nar Shaddaa are like canon type locations. Um, but as far as if this is how the hull plating got on the Falcon, I mean, we'll probably never know. I mean, I don't think that unless they do a Solo Part 2 or whatever, you were never going to learn these types of things for real. And unless Disney decides to come out with some of the older books and let this kind of stuff get back into being going from legend to actual canon, we're never going to really learn the truth about some of this stuff. So the last little bit here, before the advent of digital technology, most of the work that went into creating the full-size vehicles of the Star Wars universe was carried out by the film industry's traditional set builders, including carpenters, plasterers, painters, electricians, and specialist metalworkers. For the first movie, the crew worked on the exterior sets of A New Hope, built an exact copy of the miniature model Falcon, even accidentally scaling up errors, which were the plastic core structure of the model was visible through the detailing. Plans to build the whole ship was abandoned as it would have been too big and too heavy. Only half the Falcon was constructed on Stage 3 at L Street Studios, north of London, and it was impossible to move the vessel without damage. The other sets were built around Han's ship. So, yeah, if you recall, I think it was in the last bonus issue we saw like on the Death Star just over half of the ship there in that one picture. So metal and woodwork. To give the movie makers more scope to work around the ship, the second full-size Falcon mock-up built for filming The Empire Strikes Back was constructed around the steel framework fabricated in Wales. The factory fitted this with wooden subframes and other outer skin of ½ inch or 12 millimeters plywood trimmed to fit the irregularities of the structure. The steelwork ensured that the ship had a structural integrity that allowed it to be moved around the studio. The Falcon had to be dismantled for shipping to L Street, where, after it had been reassembled like a giant model kit, the studio carpenters fitted the last few plywood panels to the steelwork before the detailing was added to give the ship its final used universe look. Like your model, this method of construction actually followed the way that the real Falcon was built according to Star Wars fiction. The ship had a reinforced frame. Sorry, I got a bit of a glare on the thing here. The ship had a reinforced frame built like a giant metal spider's web, over which duralloy plates were fitted and flush welded. On top of this, Han Solo bonded mismatched sheets of armor plating scavenged from a derelict Imperial bulk cruiser called the Liquidator. So this is kind of reinforcing some of the stuff, and I imagine this here was probably specifically taken from some of the information that they got from Lucasfilm. Engineering details. Finishing off the Falcon set took 2 months of work before the final touches, including the rectina dish and the internal cockpit details were put in place. In the interest of saving time, much of the finishing parts were scorched from numerous junkyards and dotted across London, while fittings that needed to function were engineered by specialist companies. For example, the pneumatically driven landing ramp was constructed by local company Norrank Engineering, which also built much of R2D2 and C3PO, the land speeder, the X-wings, Y-wings, and the lightsabers. So anybody that lived there in London, and if you know Norrank Engineering, um, you probably, especially if you know somebody that was worked there in the 70s and early 80s, they might have worked on some of this stuff. So, some interesting little notes here. The full-size Falcon nearing completion. Its hull is skinned with plywood sheeting, while a second layer with shaped and notched edges simulates extra armor plates. Director Irvin Kershner on set with Billy D. Williams as Lando Calrissian, dwarfed by the mandibles of the completed full-size Millennium Falcon. So just so you can see those pictures a little bit in better detail. So yeah, those were all plywood sheets, and that was on the Falcon there, and they notched it to match what the model makers had done for the filming models, for the flying and stuff. So there you go. That is issue 4. And coming up next is issue 5, and we don't have a whole lot there. We can see this is going into the cockpit. That's the light for the back panel, back control panel of the cockpit, and these are going to be side panels for the cockpit as well. So that should be interesting and exciting. We'll be getting closer to getting the cockpit done. All right, everybody. I hope that you enjoyed that. I've been enjoying doing these, and I hope you guys have been enjoying watching them. If you'd like to see um, anything in addition to this, let me know. If you're not really enjoying the bonus issues, let me know that too. I can spruce up the bonus issues if you'd like. I have the Ultimate Star Wars characters, locations, technology, and vehicles book. And so we can go through that. And I also have at least one or two of the graphic encyclopedias for like one of the movies at least. So we can go through some of that stuff too if you're interested. Let me know what you'd like to see, and if you don't want to see any more of these other bonus things besides just the models, let me know that too. I'm perfectly okay with it. So, all right, this is actually one of the shorter bonus ones, which is fine. Not a lot in there, and but I found some of this stuff rather interesting. So, okay, thank you very much, everybody. Bye.